Their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. So the young man did not delay to do the thing, because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. He was more honourable than all the household of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of their city, and spoke with the men of their city, saying, These men are at peace with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for indeed the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men consent to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Will not their livestock, their property, and every animal of theirs be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of his city heeded Hamor and Shechem his son. Every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of his city. May the Lord bless his word to us. So what are we talking about? God had promised to Jacob the land of Canaan, as he had promised it to Isaac and to Abraham. But to Abraham he'd indicated it would be 400 years of opposition and persecution and oppression before they actually possessed the land. So Abraham, Isaac and Jacob dwelt as strangers in it, as sojourners. They did not own the land. Jacob had been up north to his uncle Laban's, where God had given him a family and great possessions. God had greatly blessed Jacob, not because Jacob was particularly deserving, but because God had a great plan involving Jacob's descendants, that through them he would provide a saviour, and that they would be a testimony to God through the generations, as even they are today, the people of God. Because God blessed Jacob, Laban's sons grew jealous of him, and so he was no longer welcome at Laban's, and so he fled and came back to the land of Canaan. But there he had to face his brother Esau, who he had greatly offended, and he was very fearful of Esau. But Esau had got over the offence, and he was pleased to see his brother. And so now Jacob has moved back into the land of Canaan, and he first settled near the city of Shechem. When he moved there, his family was still very young. The oldest boy was probably only 14 years old. One of the youngest was Dinah, his only daughter, who would have been just a baby. But as time went on, the Lord continued to bless. Jacob had purchased some land. He'd built a well as an altar. His family grew up, and Dinah went to visit the young ladies her own age in the city of Shechem. And there she was spotted by the prince, Shechem, the son of Hamor, who raped her and desired to marry her. He urged his father to speak to Jacob and request the hand of marriage. But when Dinah's brothers came in and heard about it, they answered with deceit, and they demanded that the men of Shechem should be circumcised as they were circumcised, or they would have nothing to do with them. Well, Hamor and Shechem were pleased with that proposal. They accepted the proposition of being circumcised, and they went to the elders of the city to present the case. These men are at peace with us. Let them dwell in the land and trade in it. Indeed, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Well, this is what Shechem wanted. He wanted their daughter. But there's a condition. They require every male among us to be circumcised, as they are circumcised. Why would we do that? Well, will not their livestock, their property, and every animal of theirs be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us. Essentially, they're using the fact that God has blessed the children of Israel with great wealth, livestock and property, and that by intermarrying with them, they will marry into that property. That blessing will become theirs. Of course, that blessing isn't inherited. It comes from having a relationship with God. But the world does not understand that. That is why a thief steals stuff from other people, because he thinks that he can be content and happy by having it. But no, happiness comes from the relationship with God. And so it is that the men heed Hamor and Shechem. Every one of them gets circumcised. And we continue the reading in verse 25. Now it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword, and came boldly upon the city, and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and plundered the city, because their sister had been defiled. They took their sheep, their oxen, and their donkeys, what was in the city, and what was in the field, and all their wealth, all their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and they plundered even all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, You have troubled me by making me obnoxious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and since I am few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me, and I shall be destroyed, my household and I. But they said, Should he treat our sister like a harlot? Then God said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel. What we have is Jacob fearful still of the people of the land. As he has come to settle in the place, he has put down some roots, but he wants peace. He doesn't want trouble, and yet trouble, it seems to follow him around. So it wasn't his fault really that Dinah got into trouble. It was natural that she should want to meet with the people of the land. The problem was that the people of the land did not know the ways of God. They did not have the respect of persons that comes with the knowledge of God. Men are made in the image of God, but that is not a pagan idea. That is an idea from the Bible. And so these people of Shechem did not have that respect. They recognized authority in the terms of their leading men, and so great honour was given to Shechem the prince and to his father Hamor, and the whole city was prepared to go through the experience of circumcision simply because Shechem wanted Dinah as a wife. And they justified it on the fact that if we marry these people, then their possessions will become our possessions. It was motivation of greed. Nevertheless, we find the actions of Simeon and Levi unacceptable too. For none of Jacob's children really knew the Lord. Jacob had had these experiences of God and had had the boldness to return to the land, the Lord leading him step by step. But then these experiences coming upon him, and his sons, not personally knowing the Lord, have taken matters into their own hands. Of course, in those days there wasn't a police force, there wasn't a civil government that you could refer to. And so it was the normal practice that if somebody did wrong, then a relative had the right to take vengeance. And that's the principle that Simeon and Levi used to justify their actions. Shechem did wrong. He's treated our sister as a harlot. And so it's our responsibility to punish him and those who are aligned with him. Well, of course, one could argue whether they had overstepped the mark. This is the fundamental problem when people take vengeance themselves. How much vengeance do you take? Here we have a case of rape replaced by the destruction of a whole community of people. But this community of people were united. There was no one in Shechem that would defend Dinah. And so Simeon and Levi have taken vengeance and delivered their sister. The rest of the brothers come and strip all the goods from the city, including the women and children and livestock. And Jacob is fearful now that the rest of the Canaanites in the whole territory will turn against him. And how can he so small, defend himself against so many.